We're now in the Lawyers Club dining hall, which is an immense room, 145 feet long, 34 feet wide, and 50 feet tall from the floor to the ceiling. It seats 300 diners, and it has a gray and rose marble floor. It's nicely polished. Again, oak wainscoting up to about 12 feet. The rest of the wall is limestone, as in other areas of the quad. And the ceiling is also a little different from others. It has a hammer beam ceiling with wood timbers. You can see some of the same decor with the windows are all the gray glass, a few elements of darker glass on the end walls in the tracery up above. The figures that appear at the bottom of the hammer beam arch in the buttress area are actually carvings of noted lawyers throughout time. We're now in the Lawyers Club Lounge, which is an English Renaissance style. This is later in period than the lobby or Gothic dining hall or even much of the exterior of the rest of the Law Quad. It's more similar to a Tudor country house of 16th century England. It's 84 feet long by 34 feet wide. The floor is white oak planks. But of particular note is the white plaster ceiling. It's very decorative. Has an Tudor rose and acorn pattern with fleur-de-lis. It's a shallow barrel vault. Also of note in this room is the oak wainscot that goes up to 12 feet and the decorative fireplace mantel on the east side of the room. You should note that Cook gave the majority of his estate to the University of Michigan Law School. Of about $12 million that was his estate at the time of his death, all but $100,000 ultimately went to the U of M. Here we are in the John P. Cook room, which is located at the south end of the John Cook dormitory, which is on the east side of the Law Quad. And we're looking here at the entrance to the room, which is done in oak. And it's a heavily carved door. The door itself is actually fairly narrow, but the overall entablature is a little bit wider. Has fluted columns on either side and a nice frieze above it. You'll see the whole room is actually floor to ceiling, oak wainscoting, and the top is carved. The bottom has a small base of granite. And as we go to the right, you can see the fireplace, which is carved limestone. The brick fireplace within, the base again is granite, and above it is all oak, heavily carved again. It's fairly simple compared to some of the other ornamentation in the room, or I should say in the Law Quad, but for this room it's quite simple and elegant. We're looking at the stained glass that's in the John Cook room of the John Cook dormitory at the Law Quad. And as you can see here, the windows are all done in the grisaille style of glass, which is a grade glass. It has primarily clear glass with textures. You'll have slight accents in terms of color for pale pink or yellow or even slight blues. But here the highlights are really the colored glass in the top third of the window. The center one, of course, is for John Potter Cook, who this room is named after. He was the father of the donor, and it has his dates on there. The other symbols, the motifs that appear on the windows, are actually for the different types of law, for religious, natural, moral, ceremonial, common, international, civil, and statutory law. And they're all represented in these windows. In the John Cook room, you'll see a full-length portrait done in oil of John Potter Cook. He was the donor's father, and he was an entrepreneur in Michigan, in Hillsdale specifically. Also in this room, you'll see a common element throughout the Law Quadrangle, and that's the use of a white plaster ceiling, done in this case in a simple grid pattern with rosettes at the centers. We're now in a private room that's not accessible to the public. That's actually only for the faculty of the law school. It's called the Faculty Lounge, and it features a couple of medieval tapestries that were owned by William Cook. This lounge, as we said, is not accessible, but it's a beautiful place. You can see the tracery windows as in the rest of the Law Quad, and this is located in the top of Hutchins Hall. We're in another private room as part of the Law Quadrangle. This one is 903 in the Legal Research Building. It's actually the library of William Cook, who was the donor for the buildings. That was his personal library that was in his mansion in Manhattan. And after his passing away, it was moved to the Legal Research Building and reconstructed. The oak paneling and glass over the fireplace are all original, of course, as well as the marble of the fireplace and the crystal chandelier. As you can see, while the wainscoting would be original to the building of his personal library, it was also adjusted to accommodate the fixture, which is in this case one of the existing windows of the Legal Research Building. In addition to the physical library, it also included all of his original books, as you can see here. Of particular note is the beautiful carving around the door of acanthus leaves. We are now in another private space called the Moot Courtroom, which is in Hutchins Hall. It is used as a place for the students to practice their arguments, where people can have their arguments videotaped to see how effective they were with the judge and jury. It's a good example of interior restoration because it now contains state-of-the-art equipment including remote-controlled cameras, audio system, air conditioning, and a movable podium that allows lawyers to face the jury and judge separately. The renovation was completed, along with other classroom renovations, by Quinn Evans Architects, a local Ann Arbor firm. We are now in Hutchins Hall. That's part of the Law Quadrangle at the University of Michigan. We're standing in the hall that runs between State Street to my left and the quadrangle on the right. Behind me is an interior courtyard that's completely enclosed that allows for most of the rooms that are classrooms and seminar rooms of the Hutchins Hall to have windows and light. You'll also need to note that we are again in an area that has ribbed groin vaults made of limestone, although in this case the ribs are, well, the ribs are limestone, but the groins are made with brick rather than the granite that you've seen elsewhere. Also note that the windows behind me have comic sketches of laws being broken.